I was born in Mexico City. There are around 50,000 Jews there, and I think they all lived in my neighborhood. We were traditional, and I mean Mexi Jew traditional, which is double traditional. I wasn't fully aware of the existence of non-Jews until I was 9. That's when we moved to the outskirts of the city because my dad got a big job. There were no Jews, no temple, and nowhere to buy challah. My parents put us in the only private school in town, a Catholic one. Mom asked that we skip all the religious stuff, and they agreed. I was determined to fly under the radar. On the first day, I just followed the line to the chapel and said nothing. Prayers were about to begin, and my little sister, who was 7, stood up and yelled, "My mom said we don't have to stay because we're Jewish." I was outed. I wanted to slap her in the face. So from that day on, we were the Jewish girls, and I told anyone that bothered me that Jesus was a Jew. After college, I moved to New York. All my friends dated only Jews. They had gone to Jewish schools. They were a Magen David, a Jewish star, and they traveled regularly to Israel. We argued Israeli politics in tiny miniskirts while sipping cocktails before going to nightclubs. Everyone seemed to be a super Jew, but not super traditional. When I went to Israel for the first time, it was a life-changing experience. Intensely profound and spiritual. I spent an hour at the Wailing Wall crying. It was the closest I've ever felt to God. Months later, I was at Barnes & Noble in Tampa, Florida, reading a spirituality book with a picture of Israel on the cover when a guy struck up a conversation. At the end of our talk, he invited me to a Shabbat dinner at Chabad. Now, when you come back from Israel, high on Judaism and God, you are easy prey for the Chabadniks. They are orthodox, but they are welcoming and accepting of all other Jews because they have an agenda. They try to persuade you to be a tiny bit more observant, one mitzvah at a time, one day at a time, and basically they don't stop until you're wearing a sheitel and have 8 kids. So soon, I was going to Torah class, Hebrew class, Saturday services, and I had joined the women's group. I was wearing long sleeves and long skirts to temple, and I went kosher. I became the temple's poster child. My rabbi's wife even taught me how to make challah, honey bread, and gefilte fish from scratch. That's no joke. That is hardcore Jew stuff. If you didn't go to law school or med school, those culinary skills are equally impressive to prospective mother-in-laws, I promise you. I get a kick out of thinking that the mother of the guy I was dating at the time still holds that gefilte fish over the head of the non-Jewish girl he ended up marrying. Then I moved to Aventura near Miami, which is basically 3.5 square miles full of Jews living in expensive condos. And they were all Mexican. Once there was a hurricane and many parts of town were out of power for many days. The city of Aventura was up and running the next day. That's how Mexi Jews roll. I asked my neighbor what temple she belonged to, and she took me to the Kabbalah Center. Everybody wore white, and only half of the people there were actually Jewish. It was different, but hey, all the Mexi Jews were there. I was horrified when a conga line was formed during Lachadodi. But somebody pushed me in and I danced away. I left the Kabbalah Center soon after. I skipped temple for a while, ate a few shrimp here and there, and went back to wearing jeans. I was in my late 20s. I had a few degrees, spoke a few languages, I had traveled the world, and I was ready to settle down. So I did what any self-respecting Mexi Jew girl would do: go where the doctors are and find one to marry. I moved to California. No, I'm kidding. I did move to California, but not to find a husband. It was to attend a master's program in psychology. The first year I was in LA. My friend invited me to services at her Reform temple. I thought after the Kabbalah Center conga line, I'd seen it all, but here a lady rabbi appeared and invited anyone who was new to the temple to come up for an aliyah, the prayer to bless the Torah. I almost freaked out. Women rabbis and women making an aliyah were a triumph of feminism that I was supposed to celebrate, but I hated everything about it. I got all Mexi Chabadnik conservadox about the whole thing. I wanted to be back in Mexico in my temple with separate sitting, or baking challah with the rabbi's wife while we waited for the men to come back from Friday night services. I wanted my grandpa and my dad to be the only ones in my family going up for an aliyah. I ended up finding a husband, after all, an East Coast Jew. And he is a doctor. But I swear it is completely coincidental. His family is fully Jewish on both sides, but they used to put up Christmas trees and they ate mushu pork all the time. We had a Jewish wedding. I taught him prayers. I bought a mezuzah, a menorah for our home, and I put the kibosh on the whole Christmas thing. He was cool and open to all of it, but I haven't been able to drag him to temple yet. So here I am. I host a mean Seder, and I am famous for my amazing vegan and therefore kosher food and the horrified expression in my face while my husband butchers the prayers with his shitty Hebrew. But he tries, and I love him for it. We light candles for Shabbat and Hanukkah, and on Christmas, we just go get Chinese food like everyone else, but we skip the musha pork. Thank God for feminism and equal rights and all that. But I remain traditional when it comes to things Jewish. You can't take the Mexi out of the Jew. And if I'm ever in a fight, I will most definitely bust out the fish steak. Yeah? Well, I can freaking make gefilte fish from scratch. Bring it on.